People have been asking this question. Most people have been asking this question. Why do data centers not get built in places like Antarctica or the North Pole, where it's extremely cold and you get free cooling? So first question is, what exactly is a data center? A data center is like a giant warehouse that houses thousands of powerful computers that help you compute, essentially provide the data you need for the internet. So when next you're prompting or chatting with AI, you're essentially making a request, and that request is being processed by thousands of computers in a particular warehouse. And you know how computers behave. Once they are together or they are working and they're working really hard, they heat up. They get really hot. Now imagine millions of people making requests to computers gathered in one warehouse. It would generate a lot of heat. So these computers require consistent cooling. That's the reason why they use water to cool them down. They use other means to cool them down. And that's the major problem that data centers have. So the logical step or the logical question will now be, why don't we just move these data centers and put them in Antarctica, where the weather is already extremely cold, so we don't have to bother about cooling? But here's the first problem. The first problem is, whenever you send your request using AI, you want your request to be instant. You want your response back from the AI model to be instant. So that there is a latency problem between your location and where Antarctica or where remote locations are. The second problem is power. Now, places like Antarctica do not have already defined power grids that allow power to move from one location to another. That's a huge problem. Most camps and setups in Antarctica, in places like Antarctica, use generators. So now, data centers require vast amounts of energy, power. In fact, if you read up, you would find out that some data centers or some data center providers are actually thinking of building or taking over nuclear plants to support their data centers. That's the crazy amount of power that is required to power a data center. So now the third problem is one that would shock you. Antarctica or places like that are generally too cold. Yes, believe it or not, they're just too cold to house electronics like the data center. If a data center computer gets really hot and you blow in a minus 60 degrees Celsius cold dry air into that data center, the electronics there might crack because of something called thermal shock. Because it's not gradual cooling, it is an instantaneous cold shock that will destroy the materials that are used to make up that server in that data center. That's the third problem. And the fourth problem is, you can't just drop heavy concrete building on shifting ice. Antarctica is ice, practically ice. It's not solid ground. So imagine if you are building a solid permanent infrastructure on shifting ice. It's going to be a logistical nightmare. How do you move things? How do you move people? To build a data center requires a lot of manpower, and working in minus 60 degree temperatures is insane for thousands of people to work to build a data center. And the final thing, or the fifth thing, is that it's practically illegal, because I think there's a treaty called the Antarctica Treaty of 1959 that protects that continent as a scientific reserve. So essentially, no country is allowed to commercialize it. That's essentially what it is. So these 5 reasons are the reasons why, even though it sounds logical, it's practically illogical to actually get a data center set up in a place like Antarctica.